WeCast, supporting women entrepreneurs in Southern Alberta, with your host, Jenny Bourne.
Welcome to WeCast, recorded on Treaty 7 lands, home of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and the Métis Nation Region 3. WeCast is produced by WeSTEM, the Women Entrepreneurs in STEM program, here to support all women entrepreneurs in rural regions of Southern Alberta. WeSTEM is made possible thanks in part to funding from the Government of Canada's Women Entrepreneurship Strategy through Economic Development Lethbridge. The WeCast podcast is here to amplify the voices and tell the stories of self-identified women entrepreneurs and those who support them across the rural regions of Southern Alberta. Please join us in conversation with women business owners as we build community in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. My name is Jenny Bourne, and I am the Senior Program Coordinator for the WeSTEM program and the host of WeCast. Alyssa Borix, our technical producer and WeSTEM's event coordinator, is also here with us. I am very excited today to welcome Roxanne Doerksen, CEO of T.R.A.D Worm Industries Ltd. Roxanne grew up a farm girl and has a strong connection with the land. Therefore, protecting the land by keeping compostable refuse out of landfill was a no-brainer for her. A number of years ago, she and her family had an amazingly horrible opportunity presented to them when her daughter was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. At the time, they decided that they could try to figure out a way of doing things better or could drown underneath the weight of her sickness. And that is where T.R.A.D was born. Roxanne's initial business concept was to produce worm castings or manure as a soil amendment to support the medical cannabis industry. But her plan took a turn when local growers and residential households started contacting her about how to set up their own worm farms, and has since morphed into a leap of faith that embraces the knowledge that we are meant to be good stewards of our earth. Pressure and overcoming challenges are nothing new to Roxanne. She returned to college as a mature student and launched a startup with no business background, but found the knowledge, skills, and confidence she needed to succeed at both business and school. Other than all of this, Roxanne thinks that worms are pretty awesome. So welcome, Roxanne Doerksen.
Hi. Okay, you took what I told you and made it like so sophisticated. Dang, people are going to have expectations that they're like, what? I know that chicken. That is like a whole next level. Woo! So thank you.
I should have mentioned I took creative liberty.
No, you're creative. I should have recorded that because that sounds so good. I loved every word that came out of there.
Well, it was research.
You're magic.
Nothing is untrue. Everything I said is perfectly true and
it's true,
verifiable.
But it sounds, your language is so sophisticated. I like that. That's tasty all over the place. So thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And I just gave an overview of what I could find and what you offered me. But could you tell me about your love of worms? Tell me about your love of worms and what drew you. If there's more details about what drew you to worm farming, and is it vermicasting?
Well, yeah. So what we do is vermicompost. Castings is actually the worm manure or excreta. So we vermicompost. There's two different kinds. There's vermicomposting, which is what we do, and then there's vermiculture, which is something other, which is also an incredibly important part of what worms can do for our environment. So here's my 30-second foreplay of how I got here. So in 1997, we lived sort of outside of Edmonton, sort of by Stony Plain, and obviously on an acreage, and we didn't have a garbage pickup or anything. So at the time, Lee Valley had a worm bin, which actually is still in my house now. And I'm like, oh, well, look at me. Look at me. I'm a mom now because my kid was one. Our oldest kid was one. I am going to be all like Miss Environmental Stepford wife, and I'm going to, make my own soap and deal with my own garbage at the farm. So totally did, had a worm bin in our house, and we'd had it for about 18, 20 years. and, never went any bigger than it was. And it was awesome because, I knew what castings was. I knew all of that. And then when Annabelle got sick, we started looking for other alternatives. And I'm like, oh, well, I got this worm bin. Like, maybe we should do a little bit more. When we talked to Michigan State about their research for growing cannabis, especially for pediatric kids and sort of aggressive forms of medical treatment, and how CBD oil was helping them cope with all those sorts of things. And it was interesting because I'm like, oh, well, I can do this. How hard is it to get bigger, right? And give castings away so people can grow. was I ever confused about what that actually looked like? I had zero idea. And then I was going to school at the time because I had, you hit that 50, you have a midlife crisis. Like, what am I doing with my life? I retired from a real job, and I thought, this might be kind of cool just to keep me busy and farm more and stuff and all there. And it sort of, no, it didn't sort of, it absolutely took on a life of its own. And what a gift, and what a absolute, okay, so you live in the world that you live in, right? And then you're given this opportunity to step out of this very cozy, comfortable world that you are used to and you've cloistered yourself in, and you step outside of that and you don't realize how big it is outside of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize how big the need for this was. And the scary thing is, and the gift that I have as having no business background, is I didn't know any better. Like, I had no idea. I had mentors and medicine at college at the time. They gave me some mentors. Christy Wilson, thank you. You're the one that started this, and I appreciate you a lot. And then they gave me Merle Mayer, which was a gift, in CTech West. But when I would go to these people, they're like, holy crap, Roxanne, you are in the Sahara Desert, but you haven't even put your shoes on yet. Like, I was so over here. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew how to get there. But this part where I was supposed to be building the structure or the foundation of a business, oh, I did not have that at all. So it was a gift because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do stuff, and I just did it anyways. And I don't know if that was age, or if it was the mama bear mentality that people are like, oh, just a minute. Okay, so you're supposed to have a business plan, and you're supposed to have projections, and you should have like a thing. And I was like, what the poop are you talking about? No, this is what we're doing. Either, seriously, put your shoes on, because we're running. I want to retire and actually spend some time with my amazing husband, because he's like, woman, are you okay? You work a lot. I'm like, I know. Isn't it fun? He's like, no, no, I'd like to, see you once in a while. And having said that, now I can see why I needed this structure. But at the time, I think I would have curbed my enthusiasm for growth if I would have known business and known what I should have been doing instead of just doing it. And that in itself has been a blessing to the next degree. And the other thing that's super funny is, and looking back, because it's almost 4 years that we've actually been a commercial business. Looking back at it, and I don't know if this is just because I think sun shines out of everybody's butt, and I don't care if you're mean or not mean, or like, I don't care. I don't care, because I don't have enough emotional energy to second guess what you're telling me, right? So if you say I am the biggest rock star on the planet, I'd be like, what? Yeah, I support you in that. And that has been a gift, because I never, ever questioned where people were coming from. Have I been taken advantage of? Oh, of course. But at the end of the day, that's not on me. That's on them. And I don't have to live with my integrity being questioned, because you told me something, I believed it to be true. And if you want to exploit it, that fly out, or I don't have enough time to worry about if you're exploiting me, or I don't have enough time for that. You know what I have time for? I have time to figure out how we can take a complete gross waste stream and save it from our landfills and change it into something that's remarkable. And with all the government sort of mandates coming down, and the using of less synthetic fertilizers, which affects us directly as farmers, How can we support that industry and say, you know what? It's not perfect. Well, neither are chemicals, synthetics, but it's not perfect. But this, we can reduce your input costs like 80%. And that's amazing. I will even teach you. We have some farmers that I will teach you how to make extract on your farm. And we will come bring it to our lab. We'll look under the microscope and we'll figure it out, because who is going to feed our world if we don't? And that's the stewardship part of it for me. And what started out as a little mom and pop, I'm going to grow cannabis. Ooh, look at me, I'm so bad, right? Grew into this because this was before legalization, right?
Yeah.
And grew into something that is so incredibly worldwide. The amount of garbage that we are producing and the organic garbage that we're producing can 100% be changed into something amazing that will help us in the circular economic and circular environmental thought position that we are at in T.R.A.D, which is, I mean, are you friggin' shenanigans? Like, seriously, my kid got sick and now we're a worm farm and now we're changing policy. Are you kidding me? That's remarkable. I barely can hang on to my pants half the time because I have no idea what's happening, but I get these opportunities, these absolute strategic gifts like them. Are you kidding me? I didn't even hear of it. And the fact that I got a phone call and then I looked at your guys' stuff and I'm like, whoa, that's cool, because we get a lot of, I don't know how to describe, but we get a lot of people, tire kickers maybe is the word. And they're like, hey, we want to partner with you because you're cool and you're weird and you do cool crap. And, science, we are 50% science and we are 50% sales, because I don't want anybody to own our research but us, in the fact that I don't want to be influenced one way or the other. Will I listen to you as a university? Of course, because you guys are the experts. But at the end of the day, we have to decide who we are as a company and the vision and be true to that. And that is amazing. And when I saw WeStem and I saw who the partnerships were and I saw who the people were and they were authentic in their generosity, I honestly almost spit coffee out of my mouth when you said that word. I can't even say it because it's so funny. I'm like, really?
Honorarium?
I laughed. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, what are you going to send me, a Starbucks card? Because that's friggin' hilarious. Because we do more free crap than you can shake a stick at. And that's okay. That's okay. Right? I don't know what another sort of more sophisticated word, but if I'm in a place of influence that can help somebody else out from where I was 4 years ago to who we are now, oh man, I am like, Chris Evans in the Winter Soldier when he was a skinny weird kid to be in not that we're jacked, but that transition in 4 years, because we came up with this, people would pat you on the head and be like, oh, are you a worm farmer? I'm like, yeah, I am. To now we're making government policy. We're influencing what the government is doing and municipalities are doing and how they're changing this gross thing into something amazing. And how flarping cool is that?
So I'm very curious. I know that there are some communities and municipalities that, it's hard to get them on board just to recycle their plastic bottles, So how are you able to influence those government policies? How are you getting the ear of the right people?
Well, that's exactly the point. Isn't that the point? Right? So I'm pretty old, right? And that is a gift, because I have friends everywhere. And our friends have moms who know other people's moms, who know somebody else's kid. And I have on occasion, quite a few times on occasion, called my mom to call somebody else's mom who lives in the same place and be like, Mom, are you guys having coffee this afternoon? Because maybe little Miss Muffet over there needs to come to coffee with you, and I will accidentally show up, and then we'll have this conversation because their kid is not stepping right. And I will be honest, I have done that. I don't know if I should tell you what I do. I do lots of shady things, but at the end of the day,
don't drop any names.
No, I won't drop names. My brothers played hockey with some of some government guys. So, we pull that out and be like, I remember when you cross-checked him into the boards, and like, seriously, do I need to, like, what are we doing? And our children are part of that group right now that are pushing for change, especially government change. And I have one kid that's at U of A in Poly, and I have another kid in Lethbridge for Envi. And these kids, wow, you look at the potential impact that these little kids have because they see that relationships are more important than pushing agendas. And I think when we talk about policy change, getting to the right people is easy if your intentions are truthful. And somehow that old adage, cream rises to the top, is true. It is absolutely true. And we've only encountered a couple blatant no's. And that old adage, the prophet has no following in his hometown, is true, right? We've had harder times getting into our community than we have on other communities, which that's okay. That's okay. You'll get on board, but now it's going to cost you probably 5 times as much because you should have come in when I offered it to you. But now, right? Now we're in other places. We're in Calgary. We're in, now it's going to cost you. And you should have listened instead of ignoring us because we were little and weird. And that's okay, right? That's a learning curve on everybody's part, and especially for mine. And most of the time I try to find who the boss is and I go talk to them, right? You come in with a basket of mini muffins. Most people don't turn mini muffins down because they're awesome. You kidding? And
who doesn't like a mini muffin?
Well, and we want to do it for the right reasons. Like I'm too old in my career and I have too short of time left to do it for, like, I don't care if you know my name. That's not why I'm doing this. We're doing this because at the end of the day, our legacy is to leave the earth as good as our parents left it to us and our grandparents. And I take that incredibly seriously because we have 3 daughters, and that example, I mean, people can say whatever they want, but your example and how you treat people is going to be more important than maybe the stuff you get rushed through for policy making. So, and that's sort of where we're at.
That is great. I have a few questions actually. So for almost 4 years, you've been a commercial business, but when did you start down this path? Was it more than 4 years ago when you were?
Oh, do you want to hear the timeline on that shenanigan?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm very curious.
Oh no, this is tasty. Okay. So are you ready? Because this is going to come at you hard and fast. Okay. At the time, AER was talking about landowners that had abandoned wells on their land and doing some sort of partnership with making the farmers pay for reclamation. I'm like, ooh, I retired. I had a 25-year career, loved my job. And then I thought I was going to retire and do the Stepford wife thing and, have lunch with my friends. And then I heard that and I'm like, well, I'm cheap. I got lots of it. We had 9 abandoned wells at the time. I'm like, I'm not. And I looked at how much that crap cost. I'm like, forget it. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get certified. And then I am going to, do my own wells because I would pay myself the 80 grand and boom, done. We have all the equipment. Why would I pay somebody else? So anyway, so that's why I went back to school. It was, the timeline is insane because even looking back at it, and I hope I don't break out into tears, but the timeline is crazy. September, I went back to school. October, November, December, my dad got sick. And so we had gone, okay, so this is going to start getting convoluted and it's complicated. So we had gone to a basketball tournament with my kid in Arizona, and she was getting these weird bruises and we couldn't figure out what that was. Came home, no problem. My dad got sick. My dad died 6 weeks later. Our kid diagnosed at end of January, beginning of February. So the timeline is very close. And our dog got hit by a car, all in this very super intense period of time. And when that happened, and then we started the company in April. So the timeline was insane. So like 4 months from this to this was incredible. And in that time period, it felt like the lifeline that I needed. And I was writing finals at this time too, right? So I mean, it was crazy. And I'm old. Like I hadn't been to the university in like 25 years. Holy crap. Anyway, so the timeline was very intense. And so I felt like I had this epiphanal moment when we were talking about the cannabis and there were the nuns in California because we had addiction in my family. And I'm like, cannabis is bad. Drugs are bad. I'm not doing this. And then I'm like, well, if the nuns say it's okay, right? So hold on a second. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And maybe I need to pull my head out of my butt and read. And then I started reading what this was doing and the research that was happening. And I'm like, I am in. I don't want to grow cannabis because that's not my ticket, but we got worms. How can I scale up? So 6 kid, dead dog, dead dad. My very first pitch was in a bar, and I got to go to the young entrepreneur thing because I was a college student at the time, which was hilarious because I'm like, I know your grandma. Like, this is freaking me out. Like, what are we doing here? So anyways, my first pitch was a disaster and I totally didn't win, dropped the F-bomb. It was horrible. And then Christy Wilson was like, okay, Roxanne, if this is a thing, like, you gotta start doing it. And I'm like, oh, so this is a thing. And it felt like that was my lifeline. And then I won a few pitches, won Apex, had about $25,000 worth of seed money. And then we got incorporated in April. And it was incredibly fast because everybody that I had talked to up to that point was like, oh, mom and dad kind of, like, oh, you're good, right? Like, oh, you're going to be a worm farmer. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. It didn't have any legitimacy. So it was really important for me to be legitimate. And it felt like being incorporated was that legitimacy that it needed, that it was a real thing. So the incorporation sort of was like, okay, this is a real thing. And I'd be like, yeah, like, we aren't a mom and pop thing. And if we are, okay, but we want to affect more people than that. And so that's why we wanted to absolutely grow big enough to give enough castings for people to grow their own cannabis to, their medical cannabis to treat themselves. And that's where it started. So yeah, the timeline was maybe 4 months from concept to incorporation. So yeah, it was very, very quick.
You reached out to Michigan State, you had said, right?
Yeah.
About cannabis farming. Was there nowhere in Canada that you like, was this not happening in Canada at that time? Is that why you had to reach out to Michigan State?
Well, Michigan State had the highest amount of trials to make it. So like, Canada was doing trials at the time, but it was much smaller scale. And part of the problem was, statistically speaking, right? Like, I can make anything work for 10 trials. I can't make anything work for 300 trials. And they were running 45 trials at a time, and they had done it 10 times, and it was repeatable. So that, as a sciencey kind of person, I didn't want the Jenny Craig pill that said, okay, take this, tomorrow you're size 2. I wanted complete and consistent data that said. And Michigan State was the first to publish its findings worldwide, which was a really important thing too, because it was peer reviewed, not just school reviewed. And that was important to us. Well, to me.
That makes total sense. Okay, so you say on your website too, the mission is to provide safe, organic, effective, and affordable alternatives for growers and contractors who share your green values. So can you...
Shenanigans, that is a sentence and a half. Clearly, I did not write that.
Can you speak to those green values? Tell us about those. What are your green values?
So I think I don't want to sound preachy, because I hate that when people talk preachy, but I think part of what we want to show you, that being green, and I use that term incredibly loosely because it's so washed nowadays, but I think that I want to show you by example, not just tell you, that you can live a life that is as comfortable, convenient, and easy without the necessitation of consumerism. Like, we are such a consumer heavy and a convenient heavy society right now. I want to show you that you can still, have the Tesla, but we want to be by examples. We want to be leaders. So some of the things that we really is important to me is like shopping. Shopping is a huge thing. And one of the most interesting, we went to the Recycle Council of Canada's conference a couple years ago, and 7% of what is in our landfill is clothing, which is insane to me. Yeah. And can we compost cotton here? Do we put it in the worm beds to vet? Yes. But we live in such fast fashion, and we can go to Shein and buy 87 things for $12, and then but the consequences of that are. So one of the big things when we do tours out here is talking to kids, because mostly my ICP is like 7 to 14-year-olds, right? Because that's where my mentally sort of my maturation is stopped. But we talk a lot about consumers. And one of the most interesting things that we just saw was that kids age 8 to age 17 have the highest influence on household budgeting. We used to think it was the husbands, right? Because they bought the cars, or they,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Or the women because they grocery shop, or right, like these traditional roles. And let me be very honest, I am very traditional in my role scheduling, which is because all the jobs I don't want to do are blue. Like, absolutely, right? Can I change a toilet? Absolutely. Can I, fill my own fuel? Yeah, absolutely. Do I want to? No. So whatever. But the roles have changed. We are becoming a society where children have more power in their household budgeting and household spending. This is according to Stats Canada and the WHO,
Mhm.
than the parents combined, which is incredible. So when we talk to kids a lot, we hear these doomsday stories with like the media is, it's a tough one. It's almost carcinogenic, I think, in large doses. But we say you have the choice. You have the choice to choose what you spend your money on. And one of the coolest examples of this, so back about 10 years ago, so they did packaging for video games, right? So
Yeah.
packaging for video games used to be 90% packaging, 10% the product, right? And now we are seeing kids saying, well, we don't need these inserts. We don't need all this plastic. We don't need all these things. And we've seen it in the companies like Xbox and PlayStations. They're reducing packaging to nothing, right? And when you see these sorts of things, yes, technology is coming alongside of it, but we see companies responding, because at the end of the day, whether we want to be socially woke or whatever, you know what changes the world? Money. Money changes the world. And if you say through your consumerism that we aren't buying these things with 76,000 layers of plastic on it and 800 fasteners, and say, you know what, you don't need this kind of packaging, eventually it is going to trickle down far enough that the manufacturers aren't going to do it anymore. And that is a gift. And little kids are remarkable, because once they feel they have control over something, they change the way. And I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of the word empower, because I think it is so polluted with political indoctrination to it. But when you give kids the power to choose, or help mom and dad choose better, I've never seen a case where they don't, because they're authentic in their genuine want to do the right thing. And how cool is that? How can we foster that? So that's one of them. Talk to kids about consumerism. The second thing that we're green is everything on our farm has a use. And we got certified plastic free 2020, which was a really big thing, which is funny because we sell plastic on the farm. And, sometimes that what it sounds like and what it is are different, but we are single use plastic free. And we don't recycle, because only 5% of the HAPE and LEPT is actually recycled in our world, right? So either we use it in different applications. Traditionally, we're pretty good. We don't get any more single use plastic, though if sometimes we do, we make bricks out of it, which is really amazing. And we use that for building waters or whatever. So there's things that we can do that are cost effective, and thoughtful, right? Like, another big thing is, why do I buy food that is packaged upon packaged upon packaged, right? Like, it drives me crazy when we have these alternatives. And I mean, we live in a time where we have alternatives to everything, and we're pushing it to be more out in the open, where we are not consuming to the point where it's detrimental to our world. And I think for every purchase, there's going to be waste. Well, how can we make that better and easier? Right? I don't want to make my life more complicated. Frick, my life is complicated enough. The last green value is, and I think this is probably where we shine. This is a new concept to us, probably about 2 years old, is everybody is important. And I don't care if you're purple. I don't care if you're, it sort of bugged me the last time we had summer students. They have all these questionnaires like, would you hire LGBTQ, or would you hire somebody of minority, or I don't care. Like, I think I struggle with that, because if we're assigning, I have to like you because of this, or I have to hire you because of this. I want to hire you because you're the right person, part of the person. Like, we had a deaf kid that worked here. I had no idea. So what? Like, I don't care. Are you going to be the best person for the job? I'm not hiring you because I see a visible difference. I'm hiring you because you are the best person for that job. And if we have to make choices to do stuff different, absolutely. But is that because you are visibly different, or is that because you're the best person? Well, you're the best person. That's why you're here. And I feel like sometimes we assign so much parameters to hiring people that you have to fit all these check boxes because you're human and because you are valuable just the way you are. That's what I want to hire. And when we have tours, the most amazing thing is when we have tours, especially tours where we see little kids and older kids, we pair them up and then we bring them together, because traditionally, 3 or 5-year-olds don't hang out with 10-year-olds. And when you do that, it's this sense of communal nurturing, and that is so incredibly important to us. We want to foster that by teaching and helping people see that there is value in everybody. Everybody. Some people, they test my patience for value, but still at the end of the day, they're valuable and they're worth my time and effort. And as I get busier, it's harder for me to do that, but that's still a daily mandate and mission for us, is people are valuable. That's why we give away so much free crap and we teach people how to do all this stuff at home, because at the end of the day, I want you to control your own life, not somebody else mandating it for you, and not saying I have to like you because of this, this, this. I want you to feel like I am worth this effort. And absolutely. And who better than me as the whatever I am, who's running this kind of crazy busy schedule, who better than me to set that example? And I am grateful that I get to do that pretty much every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, not everyone can say that for sure. So I know you are busy. You are so busy. And if I go to your website, you have products that you sell, you have services that you offer, you have education programming that you offer, which I have signed up to participate in myself, of full disclosure. But what keeps you the most busy? What do you think is the biggest part of your business now?
Boy, that's a tough question.
Okay, a different question. When you started, did you expect to be selling products and doing educational program? So it's very different.
Educational programs, yes, absolutely. All I wanted to do when we first started, all I wanted to do was make castings and give it to people, give it away. I wasn't even going to sell it, and give it away so that people could grow better. That's the only thing I wanted to do, like at the end of the day. And that's what I want to get back to, just the manufacturing part of it. And I'll be very honest, we are 100% self-funded except for the money that I won in the startup. And so this is my retirement fund. So that's why my poor husband is like, okay, so like you think you're going to pay that back? I'm like, I hope so. But for 3 years, we were such an anomaly. We made money without really trying. And I don't mean that tritely, right?
Yeah.
Like we were weird and people are like, oh, and now I realize that I have to adult better in the world of this, and not just flick around and be like, oh, this is interesting. Shiny. This is ADHD at over 50, right? And I am so grateful that I am ADHD, because like I found out when I was in university the first time I went through, they're like, hey, you're kind of all over the place. I'm like, really shocking, but you should see how crap I can get done in 5 minutes. That takes you 2 hours, like boom. And I needed to settle down a little bit and be like, okay, so what is going to not only make enough money that we can pay for all of the research that we do, but what is going to have the biggest impact, and how can we effectively change? So right now, probably 20% of my time is on government policy and that sort of stuff. And it is that is a labor of love, because it's so middle management heavy that I sometimes have to weed my way through. And that's when you have to phone somebody's mom or somebody's sister to get people to actually step right. Yeah. And that probably takes 20% of my time. I'm incredibly lucky that we have a senior project manager, Jody Meyer, who is a gift. Oh man, you cannot tell me she is an angel wings on a stick. She's a gift, because she is very different personality to me. And she is very pragmatic in her, oh, Roxanne, like calm down a little bit. And then that's probably that part of it. The management is probably 30%. I don't spend any time on sales. I spend I spend 1 hour a week on Tuesday mornings on cold calling and sales. And then the rest of the time is actually manufacturing it, because worm farming is incredibly labor intensive, like incredibly labor intensive. And that's good for me, because if I sat at a desk all the time, I would have, spun around in circles and probably, thrown myself off a bridge, because I couldn't handle that. So it is a maturing process that I never wanted to participate in, but seeing what is possible, I needed to, put my shoes on and, start doing it. Very, very outside my personality and very outside my comfort zone. And I have a love-hate relationship with it, for sure.
Well, speaking of relationships, how would you describe your relationship with worms?
I think that is probably one of the coolest things. Worms are so humble and simple and so disregarded as something, intricately necessary to our world, right? They're a worm. People step on them, people pull them apart. But when you look at the humility of the worm, but its impact, it's like the servant of the soil. And that word is such a hot topic word, like servitude or serving, or is such a negative term right now. And I look at that, and I want to honor that. Like, I want my life to be more servanthood. And that sounds crazy in the world that we live in right now. I want to serve the fact that we've been given this incredible responsibility. And I want to honor the fact that we as a company are so curious and not really bound by so many rules that say you have to do this, this, and this in this order to get to here. And I want to honor the fact that worms are so simply complex that we still don't understand how they change stuff that is contaminated with, like, gross stuff, like, I don't know, E. coli or salmonella, listeria, all these super gross things. And it can go through the gut of the worm and come out clean. And now it can take that and nurture the soil again and help us grow. I think the world has been waiting for an opportunity to sort of, us as, the taskmasters that beat stuff into submission and say, do this on this time and this. I think this is an incredible time where we have to say, okay, yeah, we're smart, right? But how is nature and the environment teaching us to do this better? Like, the Green Revolution at the time was so incredibly important. It allowed us to grow food in a manner that we'd never had. And it allowed us to produce enough food for the whole world. Now that we're seeing sort of the consequences of that, nature is sort of standing up again and saying, look at us, right? Like, I can fix this brown site, in 500 years. But if you just watch me and just shut up and sit down and be quiet, I'll show you how to do it in 3 years. And I think one of the things that was the most remarkable thing for me was just being quiet. And that is incredibly hard for me. And sitting still and being quiet is just, but watching what they can do. And in 24 hours, the amount that they can go through is remarkable. I am boggled every time I go down there. And I want to honor the sort of humble nature of who they are. But that sounded weird and existential, and coming out of me, that's even weirder. But you know what I mean?
I thought it was
boggled at the
beautiful.
beauty of the simplicity and the humility of them. And one of the coolest things, so in 1885, Charles Darwin said, the earthworm is more powerful than the African elephant and more important to the economy than the cow. And I mean, 140 years ago or 150, 60 years ago, he knew the importance of it. And now I feel like I am just starting to scratch the surface of what that is. And I mean, how cool is that to be tasked with the job of figuring that out? I mean, yeah, take it on every day. Sometimes it weighs on me. Sometimes I cry in front of my microscope, but what an opportunity. And I can't half-ass it, because I am running out of time. I've given myself a 5-year timeline to retire. And in that 5 years, I, and spend some quality time with my poor husband. I think I know what he looks like. and hopefully, my kids are all like adulting now, and maybe I'll get the opportunity to be the grandma and do all that kind of cool crap. And
Yeah.
and I want to let somebody younger take over this company and really push hard. And that's so cool. What a gift. What a friggin' gift that is.
You've done so much. You've accomplished so much already. And with 5 more years, if you retired tomorrow, you could retire very proud, right? But
Yeah.
5 more years, I'm excited to see what you're going to get done.
Well, I'll be very honest. That's not just me. I have had amazing mentors. And that's one thing about me that I am super grateful for. I am extremely teachable. And I don't mean that as a prideful thing. I know what I don't know. And there are people who are experts, and I count it a gift that they're honoring me with their time. Like I'll be honest, I'm not really driven by money or motivated by money. Though when I can't pay the employees, I have to borrow money from my husband. That sucks. And be like, hey, if I cook you dinner, can I have 10 grand? Right? Like that sort of it. But I guess I'm driven by the fact that if not me, who? Why wouldn't it be me? Why wouldn't I do it to the very best of my ability? And how cool is that?
It's so cool. And I know you have so much passion for this. And you said that you're just hit the ground running, putting your shoes on along the way. And then you got some help along the way, right? So you mentioned Medicine Hat College. I think you've worked with Alberta Innovates, Community Futures, Apex Alberta, Verge, Economic Development, right? So how did you get connected with all of the different supports out there?
Grace of God kind of thing. I don't know. Karma. I don't know. Like, honestly, I really don't know. Oh man, that sounds so stupid. It sounds like I'm an idiot. And I don't mean it like that.
Not at all.
I don't know. People are generous. People are generous with their time. They're generous with their knowledge. They're generous with their teachability. And I think I think everybody that has ever given us an opportunity, I've never half-assed it, right? Because I mean, let's be honest. I wake up at 4:45 every day, just because that's how I am, and I genuinely, I would say 97% of the time, I genuinely wake up with the sun shining out my butt and thinking, okay, today is a gift. How can I honor the fact that I've been tasked with something cool? And that sort of grateful nature, I think I've always had that. I don't know. My mother probably would be like, no, but I think I've always had that grateful nature and the curious nature, and I don't really care about the naysayers. Like, I know I'm a rock star, and I don't need you to tell me I'm a rock star. I don't need to participate with you in that regard. I'm pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not, and I don't mean that arrogant.
No, it's confidence. Just because it's confidence, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's amazing.
And I guess the self-awareness too, that I don't know stuff, and I am more than willing for you to teach me. Will I take everything that you tell me? Probably not, but probably 95% I would, because that's the other thing too. I don't participate with people or companies that I haven't done my homework with, and I definitely don't participate. So we get reached out to a lot, and I told you that before. Instagram. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, no, listen, leggings lady. No, I am not, right? No, I'm not going to promote your brand and put a worm on it, because that crap does not break down ever. You can't even burn it. Like, so I think the people that we have partnered with are authentic, and I want to be associated with companies that are scientific based, because I'm so sick of people yapping. Like, don't tell me what you think. Tell me what you can prove to me. And that in and of itself has been a very clear delineating thing for us.
If we could take your attitude and your confidence and bottle it and sell it, you'd have $1 billion company. I'm sure. It's
yeah. Great. And what a gift that would be. And you know, the crazy thing, we talked about that earlier, money influences. And I said to Trent the other day, I said, once we get the company up to whatever threshold it is, I said, because written right in our bylaws, half of all profits go back to charity. I want to be able to influence through our gift giving how we are talking about the environment, because I am so sick of this. The world's on fire, AOC. Like, come on. You guys are scaring people, and we're not there. We have absolute control. Can we fix this? Absolutely. Is it going to be perfect? Of course not. But these little tiny changes can make a huge difference rather than bombarding, especially little kids. And I think that there is a special place in, I don't know, poop scoop land for people that prey on the innocence of kids. And instead of teaching them how to be better, you are scaring them to be waking up every day. That's not okay. That is awful. And there is consequences for that. I don't know who is going to suffer them or where, but there is consequences. And I think through gift giving, we can influence the right companies, or support the right companies to do better. And how cool is that? So yeah, I look forward to when that is. So if somebody's got a sugar daddy, I don't want to have a relationship with you. Just give me money and I'll go fix your garbage problem. So sugar daddy, call me. I'm at this point. I have no shame left.
And I would like to point out that you are not old. And if this is the definition of old, I want to stay old forever because I'll take that energy. Thank you.
Tasty little niblet. This is 50. This is over 50 right here. I'm like this. I put on heels the other day and I was like, oh, those are not going to work anymore. I'm going to go put my boots on. Thanks for coming out. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Roxanne. This has been so great. I'm so excited to come out to the farm and to take one of your workshops and get to know more about worm farming in my backyard.
Well, you know what? And it's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you. My time with you was precious. And what a joy that is. So thank you very much.
We want to hear from you. Is there a question that you'd like us to answer on our next podcast? Send it in to westem@chooselethbridge.ca.
WeCast is a production of the Women Entrepreneurs in STEM program. WeSTEM is made possible thanks in part to funding from the Government of Canada's Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. For more information, visit our website at westem.ca or contact westem@chooselethbridge.ca. Thanks for listening.